Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers and a first run look at a shoe we are pretty excited about. This is the new Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite. You're going to be hearing a lot about this shoe in the coming months, not least because some new research has suggested this is now the most efficient running shoe that's on the shelves. That is a massive shout, but there is data to back it up. And we've even done our own lab tests in this shoe that seem to concur with that. We've also taken it for some initial miles in the real world. So let's get into it in our Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite first run. Quick shoe details first then, and Puma lists the stack height at 40 mils in the heel, 32 mils in the forefoot for an 8 mil drop. Weight is one of the biggest headlines here, with a big chunk shaved off the Fast-R2, more than 30% cut in fact. I think 95 grams down on that last gen shoe. So the Fast-R3 now weighs in at 6.2 ounces, or 175 grams in my UK men's 8.5 test shoe. That's slightly heavier than the new Vaporfly 4 but lighter than the Metaspeed Sky Paris. On price, it's launching at $300 in the US. I didn't have the UK price at the time of recording this, but when I get it, I'll put it in the caption below. Let's take a quick look at the new shoe then, and what you've got here is a considerably lighter shoe than the Fast-R2, with a bunch of tweaks and optimizations designed to make this a more efficient shoe. It sticks with the decoupled midsole that we saw in the Fast-R2. That uses Puma's supercritical Nitro Elite foam. In the middle of that, you've got a restructured, reshaped, tweaked, redesigned powerplate carbon plate. You've now got 7 layers laid down for maximum benefit. That's all based on a computational design that's enabled Puma to make it more effective. We've also kept the lip out front here that's familiar with these shoes to provide that extra leverage in the final point of toe off. What you also notice is that there's a little more flex in the midsole plate combo than on some stiffer carbon shoes. You've also got the sweeping heel cutaway that has made these shoes kind of stand out from the crowd. Puma used some clever computer modelling and virtual prototyping to shave off any foam that wasn't doing a job in this midsole, and you can see there's quite a lot of cutaways going on. Up top, there's a really light, highly breathable ultra weave upper. It's incredibly minimal but feels durable. The tongues are about the thinnest tongues I've ever seen on the shoe. They're really quite thin, a bit flimsy. There's almost nothing to them. I like the fact the heel collars here have some more traditional kind of style of the padding rather than just the 2 pads you often have. You've got a more complete setup here, though it's still pretty thin, and the heel counter is reduced down to this just very small section. Now the outsole has a big pad of Puma grip on the forefoot and a couple of small pads in the key heel impact zones. These heel pads look a little small to me, but we'll see how they cope when it comes to dealing with the big mileage. So a quick word on the fit and the comfort. I ran in a UK 8.5, US 9.5, which would be my regular size in Puma shoes. I think there's a few things to note on the fit. They've got a good hugging race fit. These areas here across the midfoot lock down really nicely. These uppers have some structure to them, but you can see there's quite a lot of flex. So around the toe knuckles, you're not getting pinched in. There's no discomfort there. There's room for the foot to kind of move. The other thing in terms of movement, there's quite a long toe box. You've got quite a lot of clearance towards the end here, which is good for that kind of black toenail problem. Doesn't feel like that's going to happen. The toe box is quite narrow though. It does taper quite sharply. So things maybe are a little bit more cramped here. If you really like to splay, you're going to notice that up front. But I find there's enough room here towards the end, so that extra bit's not a problem. When it comes to these heel collars, I like the fact that there is a bit more in the heel collar here. That hasn't given me any problems. I've had good lockdown. It holds really well. The tongues are a bit flimsy. Those do potentially worry me in terms of durability. You have to work a bit to get them in place, but everything's nice and light. I've got good lace lockdown. Comfort overall on that run was generally pretty good. They do have quite a snug race fit though. That is going to be an interesting one to test over 26.2 miles in a couple of weeks in London. So before I get into my first run thoughts on this shoe, a few weeks back I headed over to the Puma HQ in Germany, where I was put through a running economy test in the Puma Nitro lab, essentially comparing the new Fast-R3 with the Adidas Adios Pro 4. I also took the Asics Nova Blast 5 as a kind of mid-price shoe to compare it to. And essentially this test was done to determine which shoes of those I was most efficient in. Now, I've got a piece going up soon for Wired, so I can't give all the details here in this video, and I will share a video on the run testers of all of that test later on the channel. But in a nutshell, those tests revealed that I was 4.9% less efficient in the Nova Blast 5. No huge surprises there, maybe. But I was also 2.23% less efficient in the Adios Pro 4. Now, other runners did the same test and found the Fast-R 3 beat the Vaporfly 4, the Cielo X1 2.0. Puma has also commissioned a bigger piece of research with someone whose name I'm going to massacre now, Walter Hoogkamer at the University of Massachusetts. He was the same person who led the original external testing of the Nike Vaporfly 4% back in the day in 2017. And he's done a test for this as well. Basically, the Fast-R 3 here was more efficient than the Adios Pro Evo, the Alphafly 3, and the Fast-R 2 in those tests. You can find the study online. Crucially though, so far it's also proved more efficient for all runners. So while some carbon shoes have responders and non-responders, this shoe seems to work at some level for everyone. That hasn't happened before. Well, that's pretty interesting, but now we all know that running on a treadmill for 15 minutes is one thing, but how you get on with the shoe in the real world is another entirely. It might be more efficient. Does it feel good on the foot? That's what we've been out to find out. So in addition to that treadmill test, I've also done a first run in these shoes in the real world. Here's how I got on. So for this first run, I've just done a 3-mile warm-up, mixed up the paces, but had some easier miles in there. And I'm about to go and do a 5K all out. So I'm going to try and push that, maybe a mile marathon pace, maybe sort of step it up from there, see how we go. From those early miles, what I've really noticed is that this shoe, it almost needs you to be running at marathon pace or faster. It doesn't feel so good when you're rocking back. Like when I'm doing 8-minute miles back here, that's normally when I'm landing sort of further back on my heels. When I'm running at my marathon pace, I'm more up on my mid to forefoot. Generally speaking, my form changes that way. There's nothing in the heel here, so if you're landing further back, you're not getting much protection. The shoe doesn't feel as natural or as good when you're going slower, essentially. It's a shoe that you need to lock in. That's the sense I'm getting here from those early miles. I locked in when I had the treadmill test over in Germany, and it felt pretty good, pretty smooth. Took a while to run it in and get it to feel natural, but once you did, it felt good. We're going to go and find out if that's the same here, because those didn't feel too natural when I was going slow. So I've just finished doing that 3-mile, not quite a 5K, but just did 3 miles. I kind of pushed it as much as I could actually. The first mile was fast, the second mile a little bit slower, third mile a little bit slower. All of them I think were under 6:15s, one of them was under 6, so that's faster than my marathon pace actually. It's closer to my sort of 10K pace probably. So how did that feel? Well, there's a big difference here to running in these on the treadmill, where everything's smoother, more consistent platform. You've got a bit of bounce coming back. What you notice when you get out on the roads in these, they are definitely a shoe that you have to run your way into. They take a little bit of concentration, a little bit of control, a little bit of thought about foot placement. I think part of that is due to those heel cutaways. If you're not used to running in those, this is the first time I've run in a shoe has such exaggerated heel cutaways. I didn't run in the Fast-R 2. So that's a new sensation for me. And what I found was I had to get up onto my mid to forefoot, really kind of land no further back in order to engage this shoe in a proper way. When I did that, I really felt the kind of rockering, the roll through, and particularly on toe off, that extended kind of plate, I really feel it gives you a little bit more of a push as you kick off. That is noticeable in this shoe. I didn't feel 100% natural in them, not as natural as a Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 PB or even the Vaporfly 4 that I just did the 10 miler in Cove in. But these do feel fast, they do feel snappy when you're moving right and hitting the ground right, particularly at those faster paces. This is a shoe that definitely responds when you're moving, I think, marathon pace and faster. Anything lower than that feels a little bit odd because there's nothing at the back. I think if you're a serious heel striker as well, you might find this a bit of an odd shoe to get along with. I'm not. I tend to be kind of mid to forefoot, maybe a bit further back when I'm landing slower or heavier. And yeah, I could engage this shoe well and get a lot out of it. When I was running really well, that fastest mile, when I felt fresh, they did feel quite smooth once you'd engaged them right, but it did take a little bit of concentration. The other thing that would worry me about this shoe for some runners as a marathon shoe is just what happens. Again, I always talk about that last 6 miles. If things go really wrong, you end up really landing further back. You're really heavy, really tired, where you're going to need that heel protection. When you're back like that, you almost feel like these have like a negative drop because there's no heel. That could be problematic for some people. So I think it's definitely a shoe, and it's something that Puma said to me when I was over there, that you want to be in good shape for chasing your fastest marathon time. And by good shape and chasing those times, I really mean in good form. You want to know that you're going to be able to hold good form for the whole of it and engage these shoes in the right way with concentration and sort of dialed in. I think that's going to be really important. if in doubt, if that's not going to happen, you're probably going to be better off going back into some of the other shoes that maybe offer a bit more protection in the back. You know, I think Puma would certainly say drop back to the Puma Deviate Nitro 3. There might be other shoes, obviously, that, you know, I'd say the Nike Vaporfly 4 might be a shoe like that does that. I certainly think the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 PB would do that. Now, I wanted to draw a couple of other comparisons just off that first run, because thoughts were popping through my head whilst I was doing this, but the Adios Pro 4 and about the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2. I kind of put this shoe somewhere into the bracket of those shoes, not exactly the same, but just I find they are shoes that I have to focus a little bit of attention and energy on how I'm landing, more so than other shoes. So that does take a little bit of your kind of mental energy during the race, and that's what I got with these shoes as well. It's probably the most accentuated in the Pro 4 and certainly the Saucony Endorphin Elite. The Elite, much more squishy, much more springy and bouncy. Underfoot, these guys here, the Puma Fast-R, there's not loads and loads of squish. They're pretty quick to come back. That foam doesn't compress really, really far, but it does punch back quite quickly. The other thing I'll say is, you know, when I'm up those mid to forefoots, I did feel a bit of the ground coming through that I don't know how that's going to hold up over the 26.2. My left foot did feel a bit hot, so that's going to be an interesting one to test out. So those are my initial thoughts from the first run here, and that was a 6 miler in total with mixed pace. So first run impressions then from the Fast R3. This is a shoe that I really quite like. I'm kind of excited to take it out and use it on the London Marathon. Those first miles haven't put me off taking it to go and chase a PB in a week or so's time. I felt it was more natural on the treadmill when I had a consistent sort of platform to run off. Out here in the real world on pavements where there's bobbles and bumps and lumps and stuff, I had to focus a bit more, so some of that kind of smoothness and some of the disappearing feel on the foot went away. I had to concentrate a bit more, but overall I think they tick a lot of boxes. When you're running with good form, good locked in form, you're running fast, marathon pace and faster, they feel smooth, there's good transitions, they're snappy, they're poppy, there's good energy coming back. You're not going to get much protection in the heels, so you're going to have to really be able to maintain that form throughout. But I think these have the hallmarks, and you know, obviously based on the tests that I've done, of being a good, efficient marathon race shoe. I'm not sure everyone's going to love them in terms of the way that they run though, the actual underfoot feel, and that is a big factor when you're choosing a marathon shoe, so we will bear that in mind. But so far my impressions of the shoe are that this feels fast, it feels good, I think it's an exciting shoe, and I'm really looking forward to taking it out onto the streets of London to see if it can help me get the edge, as all the science and the tests suggest it might. So there you have it, that's been my first run look at the new Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite 3. I will be racing the London Marathon in this shoe in a couple of weeks. Based on how that's performed in those tests, I kind of have to. I'm hoping that this can give me the edge, maybe help me chase a PB, but we will find out and report back. Keep an eye out on the channel for the lap video and the lab test video too. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, then you'll hear about when those videos land. Otherwise, thank you very much for stopping by, and until next time, happy running, people.